Okay, let's dive into the first zone we're going to look at, which is called the beefy zone. And this is the range between 50 hertz and 250 hertz. Now, for the sake of simplicity, what I've done is I've exported the instrumental version of my song Laws of Science. Right, and then I just dragged in the dry vocal. That way we can really have an organic sense and a feel of what's happening. Now, the only processing that is being done on this vocal up to this point is a little bit of tuning. That's it. And I'm running, as far as recording it goes, in case you're curious, I just used my Aston Origin microphone, which is like a $300 microphone, and I ran that through my Apollo Twin UAD interface, which is like, I think around $700-800. So it's a pretty pricey interface, but you don't need an expensive interface. The Focusrite Scarletts sound amazing, especially being that they're only $120. So now let's dive into the beefy zone and what is this zone on an EQ. So I'm going to pull up a basic stock EQ, that way we can see visually what's going on here. So the beefy zone is between 50 hertz and 250 hertz. So here is 50 hertz. Whoa, let me grab this. Here is 50 hertz, and I'll boost it, that way you can hear what it sounds like. She wrote down the gone. Right. You don't hear a ton there because that's the super low end, but as I move this closer to 100, you're going to start to hear it. There's a wound in my mind. There you get all that beefiness. On the side of the road. You get all that whoa, right? All that warmth and that beefiness. No. We evolve and we implode too. And then once you get past 250, with asteroid, then you start to lose the beefiness and it starts to sound more boxy, which we will get into in the next video. So we're focusing in on this range between 50 hertz and 250 hertz. So how does the beefy zone come into play when we're mixing our vocal? Should we boost it? Should we cut it? What's the plan? What do we do? Well, like many of these, it'll very much just depend on your initial vocal. It'll very much depend on the sound, the overall structure of the song. Is it a lot of instrumentation? Is it just a guitar vocal? Because you will EQ it slightly differently. For this song, I think I could use a little bit of beefiness. So I think I'm going to boost this right around the 150-200 hertz range. So let's listen again. So first let's figure out, is there a place where it feels like there's too much happening? And then is there a place where it feels like we could use a bit more of that? Oh, novelty of her. Like I think right here. There's a page I ripped out, all the words she wrote down, they're gone. I really like this range right here. It's a 156. It gives it that really nice body to the sound. So I'm going to bring this back and I'm going to make just about a 2.5 dB boost there. No. I like that a lot. There's a wound in my mind. Is that her car on the side of the road? Now, maybe you recorded your vocal a bit too close to the mic. Maybe you didn't follow my advice from module 2, and that's okay because that is why we use EQ. So if you did record your vocal perhaps a bit too close to the mic, then you might want to cut it here at 150 to 200 instead of boost it. So this will very much depend on your vocal specifically, so don't take this as gospel because every vocal is different. Now, one more thing that I want to mention here in this range is on every vocal, I would say just always do this as an umbrella rule, is what's called a low cut, or also known as a high pass filter. I just prefer the term low cut way better. I think high pass is just confusing. I always have to think about whether low pass, high pass, yada, yada, yada. Low cut is just cut and dry, it makes sense, right? So low cut, here in Studio One, I have this nice option, which is basically the exact same thing as this red one here. So let's just grab this, right? What you want to do is cut it, usually I would say between 80 and if you're a female singer, possibly all the way up even to like 120. Now for my vocal, I'll usually rule this off right around 80 hertz and call it a day. The reason that you want to make this cut right here, and I can even perhaps go a little bit stronger on it and just bring it over here. The reason you want to make this cut is because anything below 80 hertz on a vocal, it's not really adding anything. All that is that floor noise that you barely hear anyway. And this is the space, this zone right here below 80 hertz is where you want the beefiness of the kick drum and the bass to really live. So you don't need that floor noise on the vocal to be there. So we're just gonna cut that away by default. That's a great move. I think I'm gonna move this back to just 12 dB per octave so it's not as drastic, and I'll bring this closer to 100 hertz. That way it does a nice roll off. Let me also just move this up slightly so we get a little bit more of that boost and that warmth. Maybe go a little over 2 dB. Now, here is without the EQ.
There's a page I ripped out.
There's with it.
All the words she wrote down.
So, as you can hear there, it's very subtle, but we're adding just a little bit of body, and these are the two EQ moves that you want to look for in this range. Number one is the low cut, which I would recommend just do that by default. And secondly is this, in the 150 hertz to 200 hertz range, you often either want to make a cut or a boost. If your vocal is too boomy right out the gate, then you probably want to do a cut. If your vocal sounds a bit too tinny out the gate, then you may want to do a boost right in this 150 hertz to 200 hertz range like I did here.